Tabasco is just as hot as its name suggests. A steamy, somewhat shabby state in Mexico's deep south.
This hotel was for Carlos Cabal until...
A quick tour of its capital, Villahermosa, reveals the most famous name in town is Cabal.
Okay, this is the street, sometimes we call the Carlos Cabal Street, because he has many business here. You can see it's a very nice building, that it's the most beautiful building at the city of Villahermosa, to us from Carlos Cabal.
Carlos Cabal is the man who, they say, broke the banks of Mexico.
How do you plead to these charges of fraud and embezzlement?
They are totally baseless and false charges.
Carlos Cabal is known throughout his country as the man from Tabasco, a local hero turned billionaire banker turned international fugitive who, by the time he was finally captured in Australia, was the most wanted man in Mexico. His is an extraordinary story which reveals, depending on who you believe, the corrupt heart of Mexican politics or the lengths to which a rich crook will go to evade justice. After years of silence, Carlos Cabal has agreed to speak exclusively with foreign correspondent. His story starts here, in the southern state of Tabasco.
Para hablar del agua azteca hay que haber nacido allá, saborear la carne seca con traguitos de mezcal, fumar cigarrito de hoja, prenderlo con pedernal, y aquel que mejor lo moja, más tiempo lo fumará. El que una vez la conoce, se queda allá.
Tabasco is banana country, and Carlos Cabal was this poor and neglected state's biggest banana. He organised struggling local producers into a strong network, exporting their fruit to the world.
Bueno, vamos a cortar este racimo, ¿no?
Adrian Prats is head of the local banana producers and a staunch Cabal supporter.
Nosotros en Tabasco quisiéramos que no nada más hubiera un Carlos Cabal, que hubiera unos 10 Carlos Cabal para que Tabasco se fuera más alto o llegáramos a prosperar más rápido.
And it wasn't just the banana men who backed the young hotshot. The early 90s were Mexico's glory days. The economy was being reformed and privatized. Entrepreneurs were heroes. Cabal was praised and promoted by Mexico's then president, Carlos Salinas. And he enjoyed a close alliance with Salinas' chosen successor, Luis Colosio.
Puesto que las mismas autoridades lo presentaron con nosotros, nos invitaron las autoridades federales a invertir con él y a pedir que el sureste invirtiera en los bancos y en el banco de Carlos Cabal.
Ay, qué dolor.
This is Carlos Cabal today. He has no banks, no political protectors. He faces jail over a complex raft of tax fraud and banking charges involving around $1 billion in bad loans. Loans which it's alleged he made to himself. Carlos Cabal denies everything, concedes nothing.
No, I will fight this to the end. I have to prove my innocence. I owe that to my family. I owe that to my friends. So I have to fight it to the end.
Quedó bastante bien todo, ¿eh?
For a man on bail of $800 million, Carlos Cabal lives in high style. In an elegant Mexico City apartment with his wife Teresa and their 4 children. There he enjoys good food, fine wine, and the support of those who never doubt, like his eldest daughter, 17-year-old Sofia.
Well, I do believe he's totally innocent. I don't know why exactly it happened. You know, people say things happen for the best, and I believe that's true because right now we're all happy together. We're all really happy to be with all our relatives, all our cousins, my grandmother, and everyone.
I think they love me still, and I'm very proud of that, and I'm very happy with my family.
¿Estados Unidos?
La coalición.
Cabal rarely leaves his apartment except when he must, to fight his many court cases. Out there in the real world, the man from Tabasco is neither safe nor popular.
When people say that you were partly responsible for the collapse of the Mexican economy, what's your response?
That is not true. They are not well informed. That was part of a campaign of this political persecution that I suffered. And they use all the press to say, look, this is the guilty one for the collapse of the economy, which is ridiculous.
But why does everyone remember you?
It was very easy for them just to choose one of the, let's say, youngest, newest, or maybe weakest bankers at that moment, and it was me.
Para mí la culpa es pecho y espinazo en la cadera.
Cabal's bank was among the first to fail, but others followed, collapsing like cards. Mexico teetered on the brink of bankruptcy. The economic disaster exposed a deeply corrupt political regime. The best gauge to the way things were done in Mexico, the story that gives a real smell of the times, concerns a private, in fact secret dinner party held here at the home of Mexico's former finance minister, attended by the president and the country's 30 wealthiest men. The 1994 election was still 18 months off, but the government, the PRI, needed campaign funds, so they pressed the billionaires. How much were they prepared to cough up? It was a long night and there was a lot of argy-bargy, but finally consensus was reached. A donation of $25 million each.
Well, you have to get along well with that party. Otherwise, it was going to be very difficult for you to do business in Mexico. So you had to try always to get along well with the people in power, yes.
Por la presidencia de México!
Cabal always did get along, until this. The assassination of Luis Colosio, the candidate he supported, to the tune of $15 million.
$15 million is a lot of support.
Yes, it is. We were a lot of businessmen behind this amount, so...
What did you hope you'd get in return?
Well, what I was expecting is that this candidate would develop our region, the southeast of Mexico. That's what I was expecting.
¿Para qué revivirte en mi piel?
Cabal didn't give $15 million to the new candidate, Zedillo, but he became president.
Así me dispara el alma.
In this new climate, federal authorities moved on Carlos Cabal's companies in Tabasco. The end of the banks and the banana bonanza.
What would you say is the average person, the average Mexican's view of Carlos Cabal? What do they think?
Corrupt guy who got away with it, basically. Es momento de volver a México, which means time to return to Mexico.
Business journalist Victor Fuentes has covered the Cabal story since the mid-90s, when it became the hottest story in Mexico, and one of the most complex.
It is no doubt the biggest white-collar story that Mexico has seen in the last 20 or 30 years. He's the one who has faced more charges, more accusations against him. We're talking almost 20 accusations have been filed at court against him at some moment or the other. Also, the amount of money that was involved. He was alleged to loan close to $700 million to companies related to him or to his family.
He says, of course, that he was the victim of a conspiracy, of a vendetta.
I think it's a combination of a banker doing operations that are questionable, and also of a political system that at some point decides, you know what, let's take this guy, let's make an example out of him, maybe even as a political vendetta. I couldn't be sure of that, but I think it's a combination of both elements.
At the crucial moment, as disgrace and arrest loomed, Carlos Cabal fled Mexico. Simply disappeared, turning up over the years with and without his family in France, Spain, Italy, and Latin America. In late 1996, Rafael Serti Merritt touched down in Australia.
You entered Australia on a false name. It was, as you've explained, an amalgam of family names, but nonetheless, it was not your real born name.
On a different name, yes.
Frankly, didn't that make you look like a crook?
Well, I never acted as a crook. I was having a normal life. Yes, we had a different name. That's what we had.
There are few images of Carlos Cabal's 4 years in Australia. His house in the affluent Melbourne suburb of Brighton. A family holiday in Sydney. The mugshot when he was arrested during a morning jog.
That day, I remember it so well. I remember we went to school that morning because he always used to go for a run every morning before school. We went to school, and then after school, I remember one of the lawyers picking us up. Me and my sisters were really, really worried. We didn't know what was fully going on, and I remember we were crying the whole afternoon. So that was really bad. And then that was it. And then the day after that, it all came out in the news and the newspapers.
For generations, Ravello have been selecting only the very best Italian produce for their famous range of fine foods.
This was Cabal's Australian swan song, the ad for a pasta company, which was to be his next business venture.
With the superb range of Ravello foods now available in Australia.
He's a conman, but I think he's also a natural-born businessman. And that became very clear for me in Australia. You know, he's being prosecuted, the Interpol is looking for him, and he has the temerity of actually starting a business there, you know?
As an Italian?
Yeah, as an Italian.
Selling pasta?
An Italian businessman selling pasta and olive oil. I find that very interesting about the guy, you know, because it gives you the impression that the guy, he never give up. He will never give up as far as doing business and trying to create profit will go. So.
Australia now turned very sour for Carlos Cabal. He was locked in the maximum security section of Port Phillip Jail, shackled when he went to court.
I don't think they need to put shackles to nobody unless there is a violent or crazy people.
Who were you sharing that section of the jail with?
Oh, there were a lot of, I think, never to be released criminals, murderers, and all kind of people. So, listen, I've been charged, but I have never been proven guilty. I have never been sentenced of any offense or of any of those charges.
For 3 years, he fought against his extradition, just like another rich runaway.
You've been referred to as Mexico's Christopher Skase. Do you accept the comparisons?
Yes, that was totally unfair, but I didn't like that they compared me with him because it was a totally different situation.
But these surely are not the actions of an innocent man.
When you have to protect the life of your family, you have to do anything to do it. It was a different Mexico. There was a lot of killing, a lot of murderings, and I have been threatened.
I guess it's a big lie.
So there's no reason he ever had to be afraid for his life?
It's like a system that they use
Agustin de Pavia is Mexico's most senior international prosecutor. He'd been chasing Cabal since 1998 and was among those waiting when the fugitive voluntarily returned from Australia.
He was the favorite entrepreneur of President Salinas, and I guess he thought he'll never been taken to justice.
Is he a crook?
Yes, he is.
Should he be behind bars?
Yes.
Is he a thief?
Well, he's a very elegant thief. So he doesn't have a gun. But he has experts in order to say, well, let's handle the money of the people this way so we can divert this money for our own purposes.
The massive bailout of the banks cost Mexico's taxpayers some $90 billion. And collectively, they're still paying that bill today. But some individuals suffered too. Lourdes Verdín, for instance, who took out a mortgage with one of Carlos Cabal's banks.
Yo compré mi casa en Banca Cremi. El costo de mi casa costó 36,414 millones.
That's around $18,000. It's a modest house in a struggling neighbourhood. The water here runs for just 2 hours a day, between 2 and 4 a.m. But Lourdes is a proud owner and made regular monthly repayments.
Pues es que es todo para nosotros. Es un patrimonio. No, pues que no puede explicar todo lo que significa para nuestra familia y para mí.
As the banks fell, the interest rates rose astronomically. Last year, the new owners of Banco Cremi told Lourdes she must find the money, by now 10 times the purchase price, or she would lose the house. If you could speak to Carlos Cabal, what would you say to him?
Pues que devuelva lo que se llevó y que ayude a los de que se deben casas.
Entre topes sí, ya, pero ya está horrible.
Carlos Cabal, meanwhile, fights his own battles. He employs 23 lawyers, some to defend him, others to prosecute his case for compensation. His bail is far and away the highest ever demanded in Mexico. And the prosecutors say it needs to be.
If he's not going to lose big money and he finds out, and he has good lawyers, that he is going to end up in jail, he may fly away again, and it's going to be impossible to find him.
So it's not punitive, it's to hold him here?
It's to hold him.
You wouldn't run away again?
No. No.
Well, if I was in his situation, I would say the same, right? But he's a liar.
How important is it to you to be declared an innocent man?
Very important. The most important thing in my life. Very, very important. For my family, I think I have to get that.
What about for yourself?
Yes, for myself too, but I believe I have a responsibility. As I'm telling you, I have a son that is named like me, so I really think that I have to fix that.
¿Para qué sin piedad me desangras si ya soy de ti?
We'll probably never know the full truth about the man from Tabasco. Almost 10 years have flowed under the bridge. As for the money, who knows where that's gone. But if Carlos Cabal does escape conviction and imprisonment, he plans to return to the south to reignite the banana business and to retrieve what he can of his life and his reputation.